once again against Kevin Trulove. I love that last name, playing Rakdos aggro with a lot of new cards from War of the Spark, apparently, so that should be exciting.
So the major motivator to build a deck like this is Dread Horde Butcher. If this was a mono red card, it would be 4 copies of no questions asked. Is it good enough to justify playing a bunch of Blood Crypts and Dragon Skull Scummets? And Trulove here is even playing some Swamps in his deck as well. So he's really leaning into the black cards. He has Tibalt, the new Planeswalker, alongside 3 copies of Heartfire as a little bit of burn on top of the Shocks and Lightning Strikes and such. 3 copies of Angar's Rampage. So this is a legit Rakdos deck. This is not just splashing some sideboard cards.
Both these players have what appear to be pretty keepable hands with lands and spells, so we are underway here. To note, for those of you that are joining us early this morning, first of all, thank you for joining us. Second of all, we are underneath the Vancouver Mulligan rule this weekend, not the London Mulligan rule. So that is worth noting, as at Mythic Championship 2 in London, it was the London Mulligan rule. We'll see the Vancouver one here with all the scries that we're used to here on the SCG Tours. Anderson's going to play a copy of Growth Spiral and put his Stomping Grounds on the battlefield tapped as we head back over to Trulove with his Viashino Pyromancer to start, which is why Anderson is at 18, and he'll begin his 3rd turn of the game.
So I suspect this matchup is not that great for Trulove. He's playing with a lot of removal, and Anderson's not going to put a lot of permanents on the battlefield to be removed that way. And his deck is a little bit slower than your typical build of red aggro because he's playing with these removal spells like Angar's Rampage.
Well, here will be a Gate 2 Lava Runner. And now it'll be a light up the stage there for Trulove. So Anderson's going to fall down to 16. It looks like Trulove should be at 18. And now it's just a couple of mountains there for Kevin. So not the best light up the stage we've ever seen. As now Todd, does he have his very powerful enchantment? The answer is yes. It is a copy of Wilderness Reclamation. Todd will untap those lands. This is Todd's favorite card in this format, as now he might be playing a new card, and he will be in Rowl's Outburst. We want to take a look at our first new card of the weekend, and we will, as that Viashino Pyromancer did get killed. It's like a baby Prophetic Bolt, a card I'm sure you're very familiar with.
In my first PTQ winning deck.
Wow.
Big part of it, yep. Something that I like about getting a removal spell like that for Reclamation decks is if you're playing red especially, you want some amount of the Shocks. But the Shocks are pretty bad in the control matchups. So having cantrip removal spells, you know, the Electrolyze style cards is really good because you get the 2-for-1 if you're playing the value game. And it's a card with a much higher floor. You can cash it in against control decks. Whereas the Shivan Virus and Shocks, you just got to try to figure out something to do with those.
Todd's life total at the end of Kevin's last turn is going to be 11. Now Todd is going to play a land here. And we will see Raul himself actually show up. So this is now our first new Planeswalker on the weekend. It is Raul Storm Conduit. Looks like Anderson's going to do a little bit of scrying as Raul's up to 6 counters. This was a card that Todd wasn't sure how good it was going to be in this deck. Apparently it has performed very well for him with 3 main deck copies here this weekend in Richmond.
And he has the combo, right? He can do the copy my instant sorcery on Expansion Explosion and win via the triggers.
Yeah, the as an example, play an opt, copy it with Expansion Explosion, still hold priority, use Expansion again to copy the copy of Expansion Explosion, and then that's just infinite damage with Raul. A combo that does not come up often, but it's non-zero is what I've been told, so it's nice to be able to have access to it in the deck, as Anderson is really starting to do a nice job of stabilizing here at 11 against a red deck here on turn number 5. That's a pretty good spot to be.
And especially with Trulove's build here being a lot heavier on removal, less burn and less threat cards than we see in typical mono reds.
This will be a copy of Angar's Rampage. A modal spell. I know Ben Friedman is very fond of, and this is a card that's certainly going to see play because when you have a spell with that many options, it's probably going to be better in your older formats, but it's not bad in this one either, as it looks like it's going to be another copy of Raul's Outburst that will trigger Raul. So that means the damage is going to go to Trulove, and now Todd gets to do a little bit of a, I don't want to call it scry action so much, but take a look at the 2 cards. One will go to hand, one will go to the graveyard, and now Raul is dead. The follow-up there, I believe, is the Dreadhorde Butcher.
Yep.
That'll come in. So it's people are comparing this one to Slith Firewalker, unsurprisingly. I think it might be a little bit better than that, but also Slith Firewalker, that was a different era because Chromox was legal.
Yep, and the equipment was also busted.
That's true.
Yeah.
Your swords, as it were.
Yes. I had a draw at U.S. Nationals that was turn 1 Mox Mountain Slith Firewalker, turn 2 Mountain Seething Song, Sword of Fire and Ice equip.
Was that in the red mirror?
It was against a deck where Sword of Fire and Ice was good.
Well, then that's game. Yeah.
They don't let you do that anymore.
No, they
Anyhow,
don't. Good.
This card's way above rate, and it's obviously a very aggressively slanted card. Gold 2-drops for beatdown decks have a high bar to get over, but this one might be good enough.
Gross Power there for Todd, and now we're going to float a bunch of mana. This looks like it's going to be a very large copy of Expansion Explosion. I know it's large because he has to grab his deck to figure out how many cards he's going to draw. Looks like it may have been 5 that he's picked up there. So the Explosion half of Expansion Explosion has resolved to take care of the Butcher. Todd will take a little bit of damage because the Butcher has died, but he's refilled his hand. He'll discard a Mountain, and we're going to go back over to Trulove. Again, Anderson checking in at 8. If you remember our matches that we covered of Todd in Indianapolis as well, it was a situation where Todd's life total always got very, very low, but he did not die because this is not a deck that has life gain or counter magic.
Yeah, you got to just kind of play through it. But Trulove there saying go. Out of gas, down to 1, maybe 2 cards in hand. Probably either lands or removal spells. And Todd with a loaded grip.
Yeah, Todd's got a lot of cards in hand. He's got a Wilderness Reclamation on the battlefield, pardon me, which means he's got plenty of mana to work with. He'll start his turn with an Opt, scry the top card to the bottom, so he draws a card, and he'll do it again. Scry to the bottom once again, so new card coming there for Anderson. It looks like it's another copy of Wilderness Reclamation that he's going to deploy. These are, as we know, good in multiples, so here comes a little untap fest. It's a Gross Spiral. Todd will draw a card. He'll put a Rootbound Crag onto the battlefield. Looks like he's going to resolve the second Reclamation, float a little mana along with it. It makes you wonder if he does have a copy of Expansion Explosion just yet, as he's adding a bunch of mana. So now the second copy of Wilderness Reclamation has resolved. Todd is having a ball because he loves doing these type of things, and that is an explosion for, I assume, more than 13. As Todd Anderson's going to win game number 1 here over Kevin Trulove, Teamer Reclamation, up a game here over Rakdos Aggro, as Todd Anderson getting his day started off in style.
And exactly how you would want to cruise against Rakdos Aggro there. Your linchpin card is an enchantment, which they really struggle to interact with. You have enough removal along the way to make sure you don't get run down. And then from there, overpowering Trulove, not that hard.
Let's take a look at the sideboards here, and we will start with Kevin Trulove, who has 4 copies of Lava Coil, 3 copy of Ob Nixilis Cruelty, 2 Amulet of Safekeeping, 2 Fiery Cannonade, 2 Rekindling Phoenix, a Chandra Fire Artesian, that's a new one, an Experimental Frenzy, which is an oldie, but a goodie. Not a ton of options, it appears.
No, I mean, you can get away from, you know, Trulove's got a lot of cards you'd want to take out here, removal spells that don't line up against anything in Anderson's deck. Unfortunately, his sideboard is a couple threat cards, Rekindling Phoenix not very good here, and then basically other dimensions of removal, none of which lines up against Anderson's cards the right way. So I could see bringing in, say, the Chandra, the Rekindling Phoenix, and the Experimental Frenzy just to get away from some of the especially bad removal. But Trulove is not picking up a whole lot of help here out of the sideboard.
We take a look at Todd's sideboard, and he's got 3 Crushing Canopy, a card that was so great for him in Indianapolis back in January. 3 Legion Warboss if he wants to get aggressive, 3 copies of Negate along with 2 Niv Mizzet, Parum, a Chemister's Insight, a Fiery Cannonade, a Living Twister, which is a new one from War of the Spark, and a copy of Spell Pierce.
Well, the Niv Mizzet's the interesting card here in the sideboard because sometimes you want to convert what your deck is up to, and Niv Mizzet is so generally powerful that that's a common card to bring in. Against Rakdos with that much removal, maybe you leave Niv Mizzet on the bench. I don't know. I'm also interested in the Negates, but Anderson's main deck is really lined up well for this matchup, and if he wanted to keep it pretty tight here, I could see it.
Well, I didn't see him go to the drawing board very much, and he's already getting ready for game number 2 here as he cracks his knuckles. So we don't want to waste too much time. Kevin's going to shuffle up and get ready here as well. We're going to talk about our weekly sale because that's what we do here on the SCG Tour. We got hundreds of new singles on sale through Monday, and I believe in your ability to name all 4.
Plains.
Yes.
History of Benalia.
Yes.
Lightning Greaves.
And
a Japanese Chroma's Memorial.
There it is, folks.
Over at go.rcgames.com/sale. You might have heard a patronizing clap in the background. That was our producer giving me props for identifying a Japanese Chroma's Memorial.
I'm proud of you. I lost to that card in a 2-headed giant PTQ. Because let me tell you how that one is to play against in 2-headed giants.
It's intense.
It is a lot.
Right.
It is a lot.
It's all shared?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yes, it is. I was playing, I don't know if you know Ohio local and legend Dan Rodman. No,
yes, of course I know Rodman.
Okay. He was my teammate.
Yeah.
At a 2-headed giant PTQ in Columbus, Ohio in the middle stages of last decade.
Yep.
And we just kind of teamed up at random. We made the top 4, and we drafted what we thought were pretty good decks. We were really feeling it. And then the Memorial came down, and we were no longer feeling it.
We had a stretch of time hanging out a fair bit together.
Nice.
Tim Ayton adjacent.
Yes.
Ohio. Yes.
Very much so.
Yeah, of course.
He also used to name all of his decks Rodman X. I don't know if you remember that.
Yes.
Rodman Tog, Rodman Wake, all of it.
So is that like an Ohio thing? Because Rodney Rittner also has a similar.
It's more of a Rodman thing than anything. So we take a look at both players' hands here a little bit before we get this first game started. Not a terrible hand there for Kevin with a couple of copies of Dreadhorde Butcher and a Shock. I think it's a hand he's probably almost forced to keep.
And Anderson's side here, a really good hand that's missing green mana, but I think a Mountain and a Shock is enough, and a high ceiling here is enough for Anderson to keep, even though it's a little shaky.
We'll see what land Todd wants to lead with. He's going to start things off on an island and simply pass the turn back over to Trulove.
Because if Anderson leads with the Shock there, he takes the possibility of Ghost Spiral on turn 2 off the table. So he's willing to risk this second turn, give up a point of damage, in exchange for having the opportunity to rip green mana and start really getting off the races here.
Dreadhorde Butcher will come across here for just 1. It's a 2-2 now. So Anderson will fall down to 19 as game number 2 is underway. Anderson with a Breeding Pool untapped means he's going to fall down to 17. This is a Growth Spiral. That is a drawing of the card. And there's a Sulfur Falls that will enter the battlefield untapped. And now a Shock will take care of the Dreadhorde Butcher. And you're going to see Todd actually play that on his main phase because, 1, you just don't really know what's going on in a new format. You know if some sort of weird pump spell is going to work itself into the equation. But 2, if you let your opponent untap, maybe the card Thud works itself into the equation. And you don't really want to play into that if you don't have to.
And Trulove actually has 3 copies of Heartfire in his deck, so there is something that he has that could punish Todd for taking that line.
Will be another copy of Dreadhorde Butcher here that's going to come across against Anderson. Anderson will take another one. That Butcher, I believe, should get a counter, but that might be a triggered ability that Kevin could miss. So we do play on for now. This is a Growth Spiral from Todd Anderson. That is a Hinterland Harbor. That is an island. That's his second land. And that is a removal spell. Looks like that'll be Jaya's Greeting, a new card from War of the Spark that we can learn a little bit more about.
That's the Scry 1 removal spell?
I believe that is the case. And now you're going to see the little bit of the shrugging of the shoulders of, I think you missed the counter. We'll figure out what the details are of this. But we can talk about Jaya's Greeting, which is it dealing 3 damage to target creature. In this instance, it is Dreadhorde Butcher, and you get to Scry 1. This is a nice little removal spell for red decks.
Yeah, another good option. You want to be kind of on the control end of the spectrum if you want to play this over Lightning Strike or the 4 other Lightning Strike analogs that are afforded to the aggressive decks. But if you're a control or mid-range deck and you don't think you're going to go to the face very much, this is much better for you than Lightning Strike.
We're heading back Anderson's way as Kevin Trulove does not have very much going on. It'll be an opt there to start Anderson's turn after deploying a land. I'm sure Todd is on the hunt for Wilderness Reclamation. He's got 2 copies of Expansion Explosion in hand right now, and this will be a Lightning Strike that goes to Anderson's face. So he's going to fall down to 7, I believe. Back to Trulove we will go. A copy of Rekindling Phoenix appears to be the draw step, and that looks to be pretty good as well.
Yeah, I'm not surprised to see Trulove bring in the Rekindling Phoenix here just because he's got to get away from some of his removal spells. And Phoenix isn't great here, but, it's a card that plays.
Better than nothing, right?
Yep.
And it is good against red-based strategies because their removal generally does not kill it for good. So, Anderson will play a copy of Rowl's Outburst. That'll deal 3 to the Phoenix. Now Todd will take a look at a couple of cards. One goes to the grip, other one goes to the graveyard. There will be a little baby Phoenix token on the battlefield, that little egg that I think Todd might be blowing up here in just a moment.
Yeah, he has an Expansion Expulsion as well, so would not surprise me here if Anderson just went ahead, took care of the Phoenix, and now taking care of the egg.
These are better exchanges for red decks. There's actually a copy of Blast Zone, another new card. We'll get to that in just a moment. For now, we concentrate on this Expansion Explosion that's going to be for 3. So goodbye Rekindling Phoenix, couple of cards on the way. And what is worth noting in Todd's deck, maybe not in traditional red decks, it's 2 spells that it took to take care of the Phoenix, but those spells actually just replace themselves.
Yep. I mean, the first removal spell replaced itself, and then the second removal spell replaced itself, and then some.
There's a Rel. Not sure how long that is for this world, but Todd will be able to get a little something from the Planeswalker as he will scry. That's a stomping ground that enters the battlefield tapped as we're going to get ready to head back over to Kevin. Kevin's going to fire off a Wizard's Lightning. This is the fear, if you're Todd Anderson and Temur Reclamation players, of I don't really have counter magic, I don't really have life gain, so it is possible that I just get burned out as Blaststone's going to charge up a little bit. Shock is going to go to the head. Looks like Anderson's going to fall down to 2.
Yep. And but he might be able to close out the game this turn, but Anderson's going to want to speed it up here a little bit because if he doesn't have counter spells or life gain, Trulove's drawing to a lot of cards to finish this game out.
Hinterland Harbor is the land there for Todd. Todd is going to tap a little bit of mana here. Where does he want to start? Well, that's a great place to start. It's a copy of Wilderness Reclamation. Minus means he's going to be copying his next spell. Float 5. Untap. That's 9. That's 10. 11, 12, 13, 14. So I believe this is for 10 plus 10, if my math is correct.
Plus the Ral triggers.
So nice, he wants to do it twice. Todd Anderson going to win this match here over Kevin Trulove, 2-0. Temur Reclamation, a deck that Todd knows and loves, is off to a great start here. This